Hello and welcome to E233. I'm your instructor, Gregory Myers. In this video, we're going to take a look at an example of our P2 project. We're going to go through the setup in this particular video. This video is part of a larger series of videos focusing on our fundamentals demo. However, we're going to do this one as a separate standalone project. You'll also want to note that this is an example of a P2 project and may not necessarily reflect your exact P2 project. And so this video assumes that you've done a number of things, including watching some of the earlier videos, but will have set up a NetBeans environment and can successfully compile to a .exe. Additionally, it assumes that you have obtained a copy of, in this case, our fundamentals preparation PowerPoint, which covers the physics/statics problems that we're going to be doing in this demonstration, as well as the instructions for P2, a sample file with sample input and output, and the P2 setup that includes the function signatures. First thing that we want to do is take a quick look at the instructions. You'll notice here that I've broken this project up into three problems. One going to be focusing on the one-dimensional motion, two focuses on two-dimensional motion, and three focuses on a simply supported beam with a load located somewhere on the beam. Additionally, you'll notice here that I've provided for you the function signatures that we will be using, as well as the input values that you're expected to collect from the user and the output values that you're going to calculate. Additionally, I've provided for you this P2_setup snips file that includes the function signatures, as well as a place for you to modify the comments before the functions themselves. If we take a look at our P2 sample.txt, it provides for you an idea of what type of questions you're going to ask the user, as well as how you're going to display the output once you've calculated the resulting values. So as I mentioned, this is part of the fundamentals demo, but we're going to do this as a separate project. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is come up to New Project and create a new C and C++ application. We're going to call this one P2, and we're going to change the name of the main file also to P2, and it's going to append the .c on it for automatically. And you'll see now that I have a P2.c under my source files in our P2 project. Now, it's got the generic NetBeans template, and so this is an opportunity for you to use the file that I provided earlier to you, this main template.c, and you can simply copy and paste this comment block over to the start of your file, making the appropriate changes, including the file name, your name, Blazor ID, and so on. And then you'll also note that I provided you with a template for the comment block for main. Once you've done that, let's go back to the instructions and let's see how they relate to the snips file that I've provided. You'll see that buried in the instructions are the function signatures. And for instance, for the one-dimensional motion, there is a void output argument and a void input argument for our projectile 1D version 1. And what I've done here is I've provided for you not only the prototypes, but then also started you down the road of creating the functions. Now in later videos, I'll adjust exactly how much information I give you and how much of these snips files I'll give you. But for this project, I've given you a fair amount of help. So what you want to do is you simply copy all of the prototypes over to your P2.c, and I like to go ahead and put a little comment in here that identifies these as the function prototypes. And you simply paste them inside your P2.c. Also, with your function implementations, you simply just copy and paste these below your main. Now, at several points throughout this video, you probably want to go ahead and build your project. And that's just to make sure that you've not made any mistakes or have done anything that would make your source code not compile correctly. We haven't done a whole lot of work yet. We're just essentially setting up the project. And so at this point, we would expect to have a successful build. And once again, in this video, we're only going to focus on the setup and not the details of the project itself. In other words, the math behind it. So what we want to do now is we want to go through and we want to just quickly change, for instance, some of the information in our comment blocks, and we'll focus, for instance, on changing the name for this first one, description of the function, and this is simply to calculate one-dimensional motion. And then what you can do is you can provide a list of input and output arguments. In this case, we have void no input and void no output. I'll leave the rest of these to you to do, but the one thing that we want to do inside of our projectile 1D version 1 is that we want to provide some sort of feedback to the user, even at the beginning in this early stage, that we are calling this function, because right now we would have no code inside of our projectile 1D version 1. And so if you made a call to this function, you wouldn't actually see anything happening. And so at the very least, what we want to do is put in a printf. And in this case, I'm just going to give it a friendly message like calling projectile 1D version 1, followed by a new line. Now, depending on what your customer wants, and also in later projects, you may decide that that is rather unnecessary. But in these earlier projects, this helps us sort of identify the structure of our program. And more importantly, what it does is it allows for us to come up here in our main before we've even written any significant code, and we can go ahead and make a call to our projectile 1D version 1. And at least it will do something. And to prove that, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and build it. I'll go ahead and open up a new command window. I'll go ahead and cd to our project directory. In this case, it's going to be documents, courses, EE233, and our P2 project. And I'll go down the dist folder into debug and into MinGW windows. Now, if I run my p2.exe, basically all it's going to do is call that function, and inside that function, then we simply print calling project 1D version 1. Realizing we really haven't written any significant code yet, it sort of just gives us some confidence that we're on the right path. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pause the recording for a little bit. I'm going to allow for you to go ahead and do the same for your projectile 2D and for the beam problems. All right, well, welcome back. Hopefully you've had a chance to finish the changes. And so what we want to do is briefly take a look at what you should have done. You'll note here that starting right off, I have changed the file name in the block, the comment block at the top of the file, as well as providing my name, the copyright year, my ID, and so on. And so if you continue down, you'll see that in main, I have added calls to each one of my functions. I have updated the comment block in front of each function, as well as putting a print statement inside of each one of the functions. Now, right now, as I said earlier, our code really doesn't do a whole lot, but you will notice that we're making 3 calls, 1 to each function. And so we want to take a look real quick at the behavior of that. And then the other thing to note here is that earlier in the video, I had a little typo in my printf. And so you'll just want to make sure and have, once again, a friendly message back to the user. So at this point, you should be able to build it. And if you don't have any typos, you should have working code. And what we want to do real quick is we want to check to make sure that, yes, in fact, we do have working code and it actually does something. It simply calls those print statements in each of our functions. And just to be clear, what's going on is that we go into our main and we make a call to projectile 1D, and projectile 1D basically has a print statement in it. It's the only thing that is in it. And once that is completed, then it returns control back to main. It then goes to projectile 2D. Once again, we have a print statement. Once that's complete, it returns control back to main. It makes a call to our simply supported beam, which makes a call to our third function, and then returns back to main, at which point the executable returns, in this case, exit success, because we don't have any logic to change that. And at that point, then you should have your P2 set up. What we'll do in a later video is we'll actually take a look at the math behind each one of the functions. And then in another video, we'll actually show how you can go about testing it and completing the P2 itself. Once again, remember that this is supposed to be an example P2, and so the project that you will be working on will be similar, but not the same. As always, hopefully you found this video useful. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate to contact me, and thank you for watching.